You probably know this story. The Nile turns red, frogs everywhere. Pharaoh says no 10 times. Then the angel passes over, the sea splits, and everybody's free. Felt boards, flannel graphs, kids holding up paper lambs. That version is safe. It's tidy. The actual account is neither of those things. Exodus doesn't read like a children's story. It reads like a war. And it was. Not a war between Egypt and Israel. Israel had no army. This was something stranger. A war between Yahweh and the gods of Egypt. 10 confrontations. 10 dismantlings. Each plague aimed at something Egypt worshipped as divine. And the night it all peaked, the night of the Passover, God didn't send an angel to do the work. The text says God himself walked through Egypt, and he walked through blood. That's what this video is about. To understand what happened in Exodus, you have to understand what Egypt thought it was. Egypt wasn't just a kingdom, it was a spiritual machine. Every part of life had a god assigned to it. The Nile wasn't a river, it was Happy, the god of its annual flood. Its source was guarded by Khunim. The sun wasn't a star, it was Ra, and Pharaoh was Ra's son. Egypt believed the cosmic order, what they called Ma'at, depended on these gods functioning properly. And right in the middle of this machine were the Hebrews, enslaved, crushed into the mud. Pharaoh had ordered their baby boys drowned in that same sacred Nile. God shows up and tells Moses, "Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And then he adds something that sets the framework for everything that follows. He says, "On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment." That line is the decoder ring for the 10 plagues. Each plague isn't random. Each one is a surgical strike against a specific Egyptian deity. God isn't just liberating slaves. He's dismantling a theology. He's walking into Egypt's house and turning off the lights one god at a time. Plague 1. The Nile turns to blood. Moses meets Pharaoh at the river in the morning. Why the river? Because Pharaoh went there every day to worship. The Nile was Egypt's bloodstream. It watered the crops, filled the irrigation canals, carried the trade ships, fed the people. Egypt was the Nile. Everything else was desert. Aaron lifts the staff, strikes the water, and the river dies. Not symbolically. The text says the fish died, the river stank, and the Egyptians couldn't drink from it. For 7 days. 7 days of thirst in a nation that built its identity on abundance. Here's what gets me. The Egyptian magicians replicated it. They also turned water to blood. And Pharaoh's heart hardened. People sometimes read that and think, well, if the magicians could do it too, maybe it wasn't that impressive. But think about what they actually did. They made the problem worse. They couldn't turn the blood back into water. They could only add more blood. Egypt's spiritual experts stood there and demonstrated their own powerlessness while pretending to show their power. The gods Happy and Khunim, river and source, were silent. Their domain had become a graveyard. Plague 2. Frogs. Now, if you're an Egyptian, frogs aren't just gross. The goddess Hecate had a frog's head. She was the goddess of fertility, of childbirth. Women in labor wore amulets of Hecate for protection. And now the Nile, already a corpse, vomits frogs. They're in the ovens, in the kneading bowls, in the bedrooms. The thing you worship for life has become an infestation of death. Again, the magicians replicate it. Again, they can't undo it. Pharaoh actually asks Moses to pray for the frogs to leave. First, crack in the armor. He names the time, tomorrow. Moses says, fine. The frogs die. They pile them in heaps. The land reeks. But Pharaoh goes back on his word. So plague 3 comes with no warning. Gnats. Or lice, depending on your translation, from the dust of the earth. And this time the magicians can't copy it. They tell Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Even Egypt's ritual specialists are tapping out. Plagues 4, 5, and 6. Flies, livestock dead from disease, and festering boils. Something shifts here. Starting with the flies, God draws a line. Goshen, where the Hebrews live, gets no flies. The distinction is deliberate. This isn't environmental disaster hitting everyone equally. This is targeted. The livestock plague hits the Egyptian economy. Cattle, horses, donkeys, camels, sheep. Their agricultural engine, their food supply, their wealth. The Hebrews' livestock? Fine. Then boils, painful sores breaking out on man and beast. And the text drops this detail that I keep coming back to. The magicians couldn't stand before Moses because of the boils. They're not just defeated. They can't even show up. The spiritual infrastructure of Egypt is physically collapsing. And still, Pharaoh says no. Plague 7. Hail. This one is terrifying even to read. God tells Moses to stretch his hand toward the sky. Hail falls, not normal hail, hail mixed with fire. The text says, fire ran along the ground. The flax and barley are destroyed, which means Egypt's linen industry and beer production, staple goods, are gone in a single storm. Pharaoh says, I have sinned. The Lord is righteous. I and my people are wicked. Sounds like surrender. Moses prays. The hail stops, and Pharaoh hardens again. The pattern by now is almost ritual. So plague 8 arrives. Locusts. They eat whatever the hail left. The text says the land was black with them. Every tree, every plant. Nothing green remained in all of Egypt. Nut, the sky goddess, could not hold back the hail. Osiris, god of crops and vegetation, watched his domain consumed. Egypt's gods weren't just being challenged. They were being publicly stripped of their portfolios. Plague 9. Darkness. Not an eclipse, not a sandstorm. The Hebrew says it was darkness that could be felt. 3 days of it. 3 days where Egyptians couldn't see each other, couldn't move, couldn't leave their homes. This was the kill shot against Ra, the sun god, the deity at the top of Egypt's pantheon, Pharaoh's alleged father. And Yahweh turns him off like a lamp. 3 days, the same length of time Jesus would later spend in the tomb. Darkness, then life. After this, Pharaoh offers a compromise. Go worship, he says, but leave your livestock. Moses refuses. Pharaoh snaps. The negotiation is over. He tells Moses, get out of my sight. The day you see my face again, you die. Moses agrees. You will not see my face again. The stage is set for the final plague. Before the 10th plague, God gives the Hebrews instructions, very specific instructions. On the 10th day of the month, each household takes a lamb, a male, 1 year old, without defect. They keep it for 4 days. Then, at twilight on the 14th day, they slaughter it. They take the blood and paint it on the doorposts and the lintel, the top beam of the door. They roast the lamb and eat it, with bitter herbs, with unleavened bread, dressed and ready to leave, shoes on, staff in hand. This is not a leisurely dinner. This is a meal eaten in departure posture. The blood, God says, will be a sign. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. Notice the grammar. God doesn't say the destroyer will pass over. God doesn't say the angel of death will pass over. God says, I will pass over. Yahweh himself will walk through Egypt that night, and the blood on the door isn't for God to know which houses are Hebrew. God knows. The blood is for the Hebrews. It's a sign for them. A visible marker that says, judgment fell, but not here, not on you. The lamb died so the firstborn could live. The pattern of substitution is already in place, 12 centuries before Calvary. Midnight. The text is restrained here. It doesn't linger. It just reports. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. from the firstborn of Pharaoh on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon, even the firstborn of the livestock. There was not a house without someone dead. Pharaoh, the man who ordered Hebrew babies thrown into the Nile, wakes to find his own son cold. The man who called himself a god, the son of Ra, cannot protect his own heir. The symmetry is brutal and deliberate. And what breaks Pharaoh isn't the water turning to blood. It isn't the frogs or the hail or the darkness. It's this. A great cry goes up in Egypt, and Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and says the words that the entire narrative has been building toward. Get up, leave, take everything, go, worship your God. And bless me also. The man who said no, 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 says yes, and he asks for a blessing on his way out. Egypt's gods are defeated. Egypt's king is broken. The Exodus begins. I want to sit with one word, the Hebrew word pasash. We translate it pass over. And that's not wrong, but it's thin. The same root appears in Isaiah 31, where God is described like a bird hovering over its nest to protect its young. It's not a detached skipping over, it's a covering, a shielding. God positioned himself between death and the houses marked with blood. The Passover isn't about God ignoring sin, it's about God providing a covering, a substitute. The lamb stands in the place of the firstborn. Every communion table in the world traces back to this night. Jesus chose Passover to institute the Eucharist. He is the Lamb. His blood on the wooden beams. The angel of death has no claim where that blood is seen. I keep coming back to Exodus because it refuses to stay in the past. Enslaved people reading this story in plantations across the American South recognized themselves in it. Liberation theologians in Latin America built movements on it. Every community that has ever groaned under oppression has found its voice in the words, "Let my people go." But here's the tension. The liberation of the Hebrews required the death of Egyptians. The freedom of some came at a cost to others. That's not easy. Scripture doesn't make it easy, and I don't think it's supposed to. What Exodus gives us is this: God sees oppression. God acts against it, and God provides a way through judgment, not around it, not ignoring it, but through it. A lamb, blood on wood, death passes over, and life walks free. That's the story. And it's just day one.